What's it going to take to lead Huntsville's top industries into the future? Join me as I chat with leaders in our city about workplace culture, attracting top talent, and maintaining a competitive edge. I'm James Lomax, and this is Uncommon Access. Today, we're talking with Troy Bai, Executive Director of Mantech, about his unique strategy for growing awareness and building workplace culture within an organization. Well, Troy, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So very good to get you in here. In fact, you're with Mantech. You're their site executive, running this office here in the Redstone Gateway, which we're very excited about. And talking to you before the podcast, your office is just a little bit further down in that suite from where mine was. You guys took our old office and are enjoying it. It
was a hostile takeover.
A hostile takeover, yes. You came in, swooped in, and took it down. So what was one of the reasons, I guess I'll get into, that Mantech wanted to have this office here in Huntsville, and what brought you here?
Yeah. I wasn't a part of the selection. I've been in my whole career in the intelligence community in Virginia. And I've worked for Mantech for about 8 of those 20 years, where I worked on site at a customer site every day, right? That was our life, running projects, running programs. And so I wasn't really aware that in the 2017 timeframe, the FBI was interested in building a second headquarters. I've come to find out Richard Shelby, the outgoing senator, had a lot to do with attracting the FBI here on the Arsenal to build essentially kind of a second headquarters and utilize the 40,000 acres for training and explosives and just other things that they can do, right, on a military compound like that. And so we have tremendous roots with the FBI and work. We have a huge contract in West Virginia. It's called COMPS. It's the CGIS, Operations and Maintenance Program Support. So we do a lot of their desktop engineering and application support and things. And we've had that for a number of years, as well as some work in DC. We have, and then other things we do with DOJ. So FBI has always been a very important customer, and one that they're used to us and Mantech and the support we provide. So certainly when you find out that kind of news, well, then that's going to get the engine going on. Well, how do we get down there to kind of follow our customer?
Right.
Because arguably a lot of the work that we have, or portions or components of that work, will transition down here at some point. So personally, I was working in in Mantech. We have 3 sectors: the intelligence sector, defense sector, and the federal civilian sector. The FBI work sits on our federal civilian side, and I was on the intel side. So what happened was, the program I was running in the intel community, we won our recompete last summer, and I had been in the Northern Virginia area for 40 years and all of my professional life. And we were just, as a family, looking for a change. And it seemed like to be a great opportunity to transition out. My deputy was well primed to take over the program. The customer was extremely happy. We had been with that customer for 20 plus years as well.
Wow.
So this was a good time to kind of step away. And it just so happens the Cyber Summit just concluded here in town.
Right.
And that was my first visit. I came down to the Cyber Summit last September to talk with FBI customers, find out the other companies that are down here that could potentially partner with us as we make the transition, and fell in love with the area. I think I came home October 1. It was in the last week of September last year. And I told my wife, we're moving. Let's do this.
So about a year ago now, right?
Yeah. And by 4 January, both of my younger boys are at James Clemens High School, and they were enrolled in school by 4 January. So we had bought a house, sold our house, made the move, and moved in like Christmas Eve. And here we are.
Wow. So what's your role day to day with Mantech?
Yeah. So my role is very different now, much more in a business development, but more kind of a market development role too. Mantech has had roots here since 1979. We actually had bought a company locally and did some stuff with NASA. And then we've had other stints. We have a strong presence with MDA right now. And then we also actually with 3 different programs. And I'm actually one of the programs. They're located with me here in the building.
Okay.
So on one hand, when you have people spread out, and large companies can have employees spread out in different parts of the country or the world, we kind of lacked a kind of a corporate culture across all that because they were all supporting different customers and programs or corporate support. So my role is to
kind of in their own silo.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, that's by design, right? There's people that want to work remote,
right?
And they don't need to live in Virginia to support corporate, so they can live in Alabama. And we also have some smaller programs compared to the larger ones we have elsewhere, where those people are here on program working, on the arsenal. So on one hand, my job is to kind of help just inject the Mantech brand and culture with our employees here, kind of bring them together. But it's also to get involved in the community. We probably were involved before, in different stints over the 53 years of our history. But now it's that much more important because we have a very key customer moving down here. Plus, there's a lot of work that's going to move down here.
Right.
There's a lot of other agencies that will come down here and build on the arsenal over the next decade, of which we are supporting in some form or fashion.
So want to be in a good position to capture that.
Yeah, ours is what is our corporate strategy going to be?
Right.
And then ultimately, who are we going to partner with, right? And then where are people going to get involved in the community? What committees or boards are they going to, sit on and serve on? And so where are we going to advertise? How are we going to promote ourselves? That type of stuff.
So coming into that and entering kind of a new market, were there people you look to, or were there organizations that you look to say, hey, where do we need to plug in? Or did you already kind of have an idea coming in what you'd be plugging into?
I didn't have any specific ideas, but I kind of figured the first step is you join the chamber, and we were members, but just like, okay, let's make sure that we re-up our membership. Start joining like Cyber Huntsville or HAZBAT or a lot of the cyber organizations, because that's, a key component of what we do. But there's also others, I think there's the Space and Marketing Association. So it's, some of it applies to me and my role and what I'm going to do directly. And then what are those other things that ultimately, when we hire people to come down here and fill out different positions, kind of paving the way for their entry right into supporting those organizations. So that kind of started with the chamber. And then you look at, here's all these events. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to this one or that one. And, there's this thing called the Trash Pandas. Great. Let's start doing what we can to sponsor a game.
Right.
Or, put our advertisements to Toyota Field like so many of our competitors are doing.
Yeah. So we talk, obviously we deal with a lot of defense contractors out here and just in our company and what we deal with. When we look at it, it seems like a lot of the marketing facets of government contracting is more to recruit and retain employees to fill those contracts than it is maybe to win the contracts. Do you find that's kind of the case?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, ultimately, if you win, well, then you got to staff it.
Right.
And that's a challenge that everybody has. I think if anything, you just need awareness, right? There has to be an awareness, but here specifically, you need to have a presence. It is important to have a building with your name on it,
right?
People in it working, and also publicly, there's a known, the reality is you're growing, right? And you're expanding, in the market rather than kind of just being a stagnant entity.
Right.
But you spend a ton of time. We're all trying to chase these just today, right? There was the ribbon cutting for the new cyber high school.
Right.
And I know a lot of the colleges and universities around are trying to build cyber programs, and they're trying to attract that talent that we are all going to be now trying to harvest that talent, right? When they graduate, and do they have clearances and such, and try to convince them to, come work for us.
To build a pipeline kind of. Yeah. So I guess one of those things is like, when you immediately got here and you're trying to do that, you're a company that's been around in the market. I mean, I remember that, but you're kind of re-injecting yourself. It sounds like. Yeah. What have been some of the challenges that you've seen?
Sometimes there's just challenges on what people's perceptions are of, or they might judge your company just on the performance of a program, right, or their experience with an individual, and that's kind of human nature. That's not just unique to us. But those are sometimes things you do have to overcome, because it may really matter what that particular individual's experience was, towards you as a company. But you also just have to not worry about that, like blindly just kind of go forward and you just move on, right? And keep doing what you can do and try to get involved. But Other than that, we're fortunate. We're always kind of fighting. Right now we might have 3 or 4 or 5 other key markets in the country for different customers that are important. So we're kind of fighting amongst ourselves in a way, no other way to put it, where to get, a larger budget.
Resources.
Yeah. Say, oh, I have these needs. Yeah, but I have these needs. And someone else in a different part of the country has different needs. So there's just some of that, right? How do you make your thing the number 1 priority or the number 2 priority? And that's just kind of an internal thing in any organization you're going to deal with.
Yeah. So have you found that Huntsville's been a welcoming community for Mantech to jump into?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's several people that are in town this week from Virginia, DC area, right, for the Cyber Summit.
Yeah.
And everyone that comes, most of them kind of convert to that idea. It's different. I've moved, or I've been a part of being that new person in a different part of Virginia where you don't feel that warm welcome.
Right.
And it's a little bit more like everyone just kind of digs in on their competitive posture. But here it's very welcoming.
Threatened.
It's almost like, look, there's a huge pie out there.
Yeah. Right.
There's trillions and trillions of dollars that are in the federal government contracting industry. And not one company's going to have it all.
Right.
We all can have some piece of the pie if we can go about it in a respectful manner. Right.
Yeah. And we like pie down here in the South too.
We do like pie.
Get a big piece.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. So let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we do a lot of office space out here. That's our big thing.
Yeah.
The whole work from home thing that emerged during COVID. We were happy to see that Mantech commit to an office space during that time period.
Yeah.
Do you find it important to be in the office? Are you on a hybrid schedule, a remote schedule? How are you working in your individual office?
Personally, I'm used to going to an office every day. And so it's difficult for me to try to work from home because I'm just not used to it. I enjoy interacting with the people, right? There's something to be said for being co-located, seeing individuals every day. We all have different lives and different struggles. And sometimes you need your coworkers to kind of pick you up, right? Or be an escape from whatever your troubles may be at home, what have you. But yes, where it permits, there are some contracts and some customers where there is no option. You work on site, period.
Right.
That's just the reality. When you're in the top secret world and you have polygraphs and such.
Skiff
there is no work from home. We saw that during the pandemic. I actually had a program where at the height of it, we sent 80% of people home and they were home for months. They had training and things to do, but we were only allowed to have 20% of our workforce in that space.
So the rest weren't working on the program that day.
No.
Yeah.
And that was just an unprecedented situation that presented itself. We worked with the government in partnership on what do we do? We can't just take our leave because we'll run out of leave and everyone will quit.
Right.
So that's where the whole CARES Act came into play and allowed our folks, right? So then that got relaxed and the next week was 25%. And then it's 30% until you get back up to where you're fully staffed. But there was a good percentage of people that didn't come to work. Now, so then, we have corporate people that I'm sure if they can go and say, hey, it would work better for me and my family if I work remote. And Mantech does a great job on providing, do you need a desktop? You need a laptop? You need an iPad?
Kind of case by case.
Phone, printer, whatever you need will make you productive at home.
Right. So your company then, the productivity didn't really drop in the remote world.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess one of the things that we run into a lot is maintaining quality control. And I think it just depends on company to company. And it also depends on location. What we're seeing is that less employees are coming back in markets like our downtown DC markets or downtown Baltimore.
Yeah.
Whereas here, the office spaces are filling up again in rather fast fashion. I think part of it is, you'd much rather come out here and work where you got lush green fields and restaurants to go to and that kind of thing rather than downtown DC or New York where it may be a ghost field.
Well, the other reality is it takes too long to get to work when you work in those markets. So here
it takes your life.
It's 20 minutes across town.
Right.
I live off County Line Road. It just takes me 20 minutes to get downtown. That's nothing.
Right.
But when you are, wait a minute, I normally it takes me an hour and a half. Doesn't matter if you live 100 miles away or 10 miles away. It might be an hour and a half.
Right.
Well, I guess 100 miles an hour, that's driving too fast. But
Autobahn.
But there's that constraint of I want to remove the commute from my life. Where here we might benefit from more of, okay, that's not such a big deal.
Yeah.
We don't have that much stifling traffic.
So you mentioned some strategies. What are some tactical ways culture can be built into an organization?
There's no escape from, you have to reach out to the individual, right? So some of that is whoever your managers are, make sure that they don't have too much of a reach, right? So that they can actually spend time. And particularly during COVID, I saw this. I spent most of my time, my 10-hour days would turn into 13 to 14-hour days at the office because it was mostly kind of counseling. These people need to be heard, and you need to recognize when they're struggling or they have questions or whatever it may be. So you need to structure yourself so that you don't lose sight of the time and attention to your people. Then they feel that. They recognize that. Then the next step is you do things to build your team, whether that's, and it can be the simplest thing. It could just be buying lunch. To me, buying lunch, not a huge thing. To others, I haven't had lunch bought for me in 15 years. And I've worked for all these different companies. You're like, it's that simple? It's nothing complicated. People just need to feel that you genuinely care about them. And of course, they like free stuff, right?
Swag or,
I mean, it'd be like, I want tickets to the game.
Right.
And like, let's say I just can't do that. Like, what if I gave you $500, which would be the equivalent of like, no, I want tickets to the game. They want the gesture.
Right.
It's not just the money. That's easy. I can put a bonus in anybody's check. But what did you think? Like, oh, they like, you start getting into, oh, maybe it would be fun for them to go to main event. Maybe I'll help that family go to main event. And you start thinking about what their hobbies or interests are and customize
and their
that,
family and what's important to them. Yeah.
And there's no other way. I can't think of any other more impactful way. And it's just that simple, and you can build a very strong team.
Does your team or does Mantech do any kind of personality testing, anything like DISC or something like that?
I'm not.
Or have you found that effective?
We have like 13,000 employees, and I imagine in different sectors and different programs, there might be things like that or kind of done at that level. Across the board, I can't think of it, but at the same time, they do an excellent job making sure that we're all trained and on any and all topics, right? Some of those are mandated by a contract, and others are just, hey, we need diversity, inclusion training, we need security training, we need insider threat training, whatever it may be.
Right.
But I don't know about personality tests.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so you mentioned the arsenal. You got 40,000 acres. It's kind of there's 80 different agencies and organizations out there. DOJ is making a huge presence in here. It's going to be their second largest outside the DC capital region. What do you think the impact of that's going to be on the local area?
Oh, it's going to be huge. The economic development, you'll have, it's almost like a city that's getting ready for the Olympics, and that starts at least 6 years out, where they start redoing roads, widening roads. So I think you'll see infrastructure improvements. If those may already be going on. I'm just kind of ignorant because I don't know. I haven't lived here long enough to know what's been talked about in the news and that type of thing. But I think there'll be, everyone will step up their game a little bit. There'll be teachers. When you talk about schools, they're going to want to be here, right? And I've seen that in other counties. They'll drive from counties over to come work in the Huntsville city or Madison city or Madison County schools. It's just going to have a ripple effect. And you're going to continue. What also makes Huntsville great is we have so many smart people.
Right.
And we have people from all different walks of life, very diverse, right? People like you are from Huntsville.
Right.
Right. And a lot of people aren't, but cool.
A lot of transients.
But it's awesome that you guys accept us.
Mesh. Yeah.
And then they can bring in a lot, because a lot of us are bringing lessons learned to our new life here, in Huntsville.
Yeah. Well, Troy, you've done a fantastic job, obviously, in your role of ingraining Mantech into the community, and a part of that is something you I guess you've done on the side, and that's create your podcast.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of let you talk about that rather than me talk about that. But you've created a local podcast that has really kind of blown up.
Yeah, thank you. The Our Town podcast kind of. I'm one of those people that I do things and there's like multiple reasons I do it, right? It's multifaceted. I grew up in Herndon, Virginia, which now is a very big town, and it's arguably the internet capital of the world. Most of the internet traffic comes into Herndon or Ashburn, which is nearby, and they're just data centers everywhere. But it wasn't like that, 35 years ago. And so we had a town, right? We had one high school, one middle school, a couple elementary schools, and it's not like Texas or Georgia or maybe in Alabama, the proverbial, the town shuts down on a Friday night to watch a football game. But I grew up in this town concept. like a literal town that I really liked. So when I came here, I'm like, well, I'm in this new role. I've always been on program, hyper-focused on a customer. Now there's some pressure. It's on me, right, to carry out the goals and objectives that we have for this area. I don't know anybody. What's a way that I can quicken that process to get to know this community and get my name out there, Mantech's name out there? And also, I just enjoy, I used to have a live streaming company 10 years ago. I did sports play-by-play. I did my own, they're called podcasts now, but back then they weren't. They were just coaches shows. Interview the coaches so I could get content for the game that I'm going to call. I got up to about 4 cameras, instant replay. I had statisticians. It was awesome. We had our own little like ESPN. Cool. I covered both high schools. They were crosstown rival high schools, each from their own towns. And I would change the color sets. On a Friday night, I'd do a game, and Saturday I'd do a different game. And, you know, it's like as if, and I was very unbiased.
You were their hometown producer.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that started, but it was very expensive to stream back then.
Okay.
Now it's free. You know, as a content producer, I can upload a file for free to YouTube. I can upload a file for free to Spotify. It doesn't cost me a dime.
Right.
Just the equipment. Back then, it would cost me $500 to $800 to do a game. One game. You can't sustain that.
Yeah. How would you make up the cost? I mean,
well, if you really want to know, I actually built my own press box on the field.
Wow.
And I put I sold banner space. Wow. My viewers are not, they're like in Indiana or Washington State, or they're in the Indian Ocean on a carrier because they're watching their kid play. That was the whole reason it existed. And yet the people come to the game are going to see my advertisements for local business. And so you
sold sponsorships.
I sold, like just, advertising space. I tried to dabble with paying for people to watch the game, and then I lost 90% of my audience. So I went back to being free. And I figured if you give something for free to people, it's going to take off quicker than if you nickel and dime them.
Right.
To me, it's not nickel and diming, but to them,
it seems that way. Yeah.
So that kind of just was always there. My brother works in the professional Hollywood unions of lighting, video, sound, camera, everything other than being in front of the camera. So when I came here, I was like, you know what? I should just start a podcast. All those barriers to entry are gone.
Right.
I really love this area. I want to meet people like you. I think you're a state senator, right?
We'll be a representative.
Okay. That's the stuff that's important to me now.
Right.
I'm in a different stage of my life. I have a little bit more time to focus on the community efforts. When I was interviewing John Allen from the Committee of 100, I kind of told him I was jealous that he was involved in all these things. Where as I was describing before, when you work in an area in a city where a commute just sucks the life out of you,
you don't have time for those things.
You don't have time for those things.
Right.
Then you look like, well, I'm a bum. Look at my resume. I've done nothing for community and civic endeavors. So that's kind of what I've done it. So, I don't really have any specific goals and objectives other than I enjoy doing it. I enjoy meeting people. I'm trying to keep it pretty broad.
Right.
Some of it's just selfish, right? I'm learning about all kinds of different things. But then hopefully it's just, it's worthwhile to the viewer.
I think it'd be great if you wrote something about that and got it out there, not even just for the city of Huntsville, but for other people. I mean, you want to move to a town and learn about the town. What better way than a podcast? That's part of the reason we created this one, is not only is it great for our listeners, but the people you bring in. I mean, it really helps them spread their brand. So they're going to be apt to come talk to you.
Yeah. I've actually changed my logo. I removed the Huntsville, Alabama from it for that very reason. I've just interviewed someone from the TARCOG, right? And then Launch 2035 has a bunch of different initiatives. I'm going to talk to John Joseph today from the Decatur Morgan Entrepreneurial Center. So, and the 256 today is doing a write-up every week on me. But I said, change it to North Alabama, because that is very important. That I want to be able to have these guests on from other places and it not necessarily just be Huntsville.
Right.
Because we're still proud of being from the 256 or North Alabama. I look at it as all of Alabama. And over time, hopefully the people in Mobile see the our town, because it's a figurative thing.
Right.
You can wrap that our town around
You can have
anything.
your town anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's your whole state or whether it's your HOA, right? Or your family. That's whatever you consider a town.
So how did you spread the podcast? I mean, what was one of the ways to get it out there and get people watching?
Well, with social media That's the hardest part is like, you just have to keep
I'm taking notes over here.
LinkedIn, Twitter, right? And you have to tag people and they just hopefully find it meaningful enough that they're going to send it out. I'm not at a point where I'm going to run an ad anywhere. Like, we have a billboard out here. We're paying a pretty good amount of money from a Mantech perspective, right? To promote and advertise our name. I'm not going to do that for the podcast, but, it also is just organic where you interview someone and they're going to tell someone.
They're going to share it with their network.
And and you just, what's that rule of 9?
Yeah.
Right? If you like something, you're going to tell 9 people. And so I was a little naive when I first started because I didn't know really how well known my guests would be.
Sure.
How strong is the pandas market versus the havoc versus if I was to interview you.
Right.
What are people interested in? So for me, it's kind of a case study every single time.
Yeah. And you learn real-time metrics too. I mean, you get to see those. And
so it's social media. It's extremely helpful, obviously and important, but you have to just be consistent.
What do people have people from back where you moved from said anything about it? I mean,
no. So they do. So I've been thinking about this. It's easier to convert a fan into a friend than a friend to a fan. Huh. So your family and friends aren't going to give a crap after for
a couple episodes.
Like, hey, that's great.
That's good.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And so you have to swallow that pill, like a little humble pill.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, yeah, they don't care because I live down here. So now I need to get the people
fans.
to care, right? You have to create that. Now there are people that are hardcore, which I love. They're going to listen to every episode and they're going to give feedback. Most people are not going to give feedback unless you say something salacious or whatever, controversial. So all you can do is assume, well, I guess people like it because they're not saying anything.
If they're seeing it, yeah.
The numbers are going up, just kind of like, it's stable.
Yeah. So what have been some of the more interesting things you've learned in doing these interviews?
Well, certainly, it's not having grown up like in the public education system here. Like when you're in Virginia, you learn all about the regions and the rivers and, the government. So here, like just having Sarah James from the TARCOG on, and I do a lot of research on every guest. And there's 12 councils of government, okay? And then how's that different from being North Alabama? And then there's the Singing River Trail, right? That kind of extends and is
North
part
Alabama,
of the TARCOG, and then takes in the I can't remember, it's a NARCOG or something. It's the one that includes like Lauderdale County. So I find it interesting just to learn things that I missed. I would have missed not having just grown up here. Some of it you're just going to learn through osmosis. Some of it you're going to learn in school. But I think Joe Carlucci, who owns Valentina's Pizza, his story was just very raw, right? And he just and I try to get people I want people to open up so that you see the story behind kind of who they are, who you think they are. Because everybody has a story that can inspire you. And that's the most feedback I get from people verbally is, man, that really helped me, just in my situation. So you want people to open up and be a little bit vulnerable so that you can kind of hear how they got to where they're at and maybe learn from some of the lessons, right? That they're, some of their mistakes along the way.
What's been one of the more impactful ones if you put you on the spot there? But.
Yeah. Let me think about that. Impactful.
Or maybe even which episode do you feel like you've probably gotten the most feedback on,
So I'll tell you, I don't think she would mind me telling you this. So Sarah James, go back to her. Her husband went to bed last summer and didn't wake up. 50 years old, 6'4", Navy pilot, invincible, right? And the lesson that she wanted to share with the audience was they didn't have a will. She didn't know where to go find how to log into this account or that account because he just assumed, it wasn't like he was hiding anything. He just assumed he would never die. Right. So that's kind of that feedback where people say, oh my gosh, I'm 50. Or this guy was 50 when he died. And if they say they're 50 or they're 45 or 55, it makes you think, have I done that? And I had someone at work who said, yep, I actually have a death book. And my wife, if I were to pass, would know exactly where
to get everything, where to go, who to call.
So that's something where, depending on where you are in life,
puts it in perspective.
Yeah, I'm 46, so we
actionable.
We actually found an attorney through the Trash Pandas. We went to one of their mixers, found Legal Journeys. Shout out to Levi Alexander, and we got a living trust.
Right.
So we're good, but we should have done that.
Something you hadn't thought about until,
or just dragged our feet. Because I'm never going to die, or I'll die when I'm 90 or whatever.
Right.
So things like that are very moving, and that has been my number one episode, most likely because people are going back to that or drawn to that.
A takeaway.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I find that very interesting. So what you mentioned a little bit, and I know we were talking before about just moving here.
Yeah.
So take Mantech aside, take your our town aside. How's the transition been to Huntsville, Alabama, and how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, seamless. I give it a 10. I would corroborate the fact that we're the number one place to live.
Good.
In the U.S. I will say, as an aside, I got to interview Chad Emerson, who's now not the CEO of downtown Huntsville, but I interviewed him the day after that news came out. Wow. I had him lined up for 6 weeks. So it was perfect timing. But yeah, it is. It has everything. Of course, we don't have the Gulf right here, right? We can't go to the beach. We have to go about 5
hours.
But otherwise, if you
get lakes,
if you love the Appalachian region, we're in the foothills of the Appalachian. I'm used to that, so I'm drawn to that. People are friendly. Genuinely, people do have some religious convictions, which do help, and really you can see that in the way we kind of interact with each other, with one another. Right. So, the weather is not too bad. People, it's going to be so hot down there. Like, it's hot in Virginia.
Yeah, and
it's
humid.
just a few degrees warmer. It's not that bad,
and a lot colder in the winter there.
Yeah. But no, it's been a wonderful transition. The school system, I like it. One son's going to be on the archery team.
That's very cool. James Clements.
Yeah. There's like a bowling team. Like, this is awesome. Yeah. Just a little bit more for people who don't play what we would call traditional sports. Right. And my other son he was halfway through his wrestling season when we moved, and he did his hydration test, and off he went. Wrestling for James Clements.
It was kind of a seamless transition.
Very seamless.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be kind of interested to see how that works for a lot of people. I know one of the things that the state of Alabama did for like military families that I thought was really smart is reciprocity law. So a lot of times, a military member may have to move to Alabama, and their wife has a career there, or their spouse, and moves with them, but then their license doesn't transfer. So I think it was last year the state changed the reciprocity law so that they would be able to now work pretty seamlessly. Yeah. So little stuff like that to make Alabama more inviting, because you mentioned earlier that the FBI and the DOJ coming to Huntsville and the mass presence we have here. From my understanding is they've had as an entity and an agency, they've struggled to bring some of those people from the Virginia, D.C. capital region down to Alabama, but once they get here, everyone likes it. Yeah. It's kind of that last name that the city of Huntsville has to contend with on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, we're the exception as parents. We've done it twice where we've moved a child halfway through their junior year of high school. Like, well, we're doing it.
Right.
And other parents aren't like that. But you bring up a good point. If your wife or your spouse is 20 years at the EPA in D.C. and you've got kids that are in various stages of school, that's a very difficult thing.
Right.
So they'll get here. It's going to take some time, because they're going to have to, and same thing for us as contractors. It's going to take time for us to find people. Right, so that timeline is going to get moved out. It's just because of the totality of how difficult it is to move people's personal circumstances down here.
Right. Being in the Virginia area for so long, is there anything that you now that you're in Huntsville, you see and you're like, man, I kind of wish we still had that, like a restaurant or a convenience store or even just a way of life?
I try hard I don't really miss it at all, to be honest. And it's probably just because I've experienced it all. Maybe a little more snow. I do like the snow.
Okay.
We love to snowboard, and I would go up to Pennsylvania a lot to snowboard. But now fine. We'll just go out west, right?
Have to make a trip out of it. Yeah.
And I try hard to not go to chains down here. I'm trying to hit either things I've never been to.
Right.
Or just, help the mom and pop eateries and restaurants. I don't really miss anything.
Yeah.
It was good. Don't get me wrong. Good times, but I don't miss it.
So flip side of that, give me some of your favorite local eateries here then, if you've been to a few of them.
I love Connors.
Bridge
Street. I do. I just like their menu.
Mm-hmm.
I like the decor in there. I think it was the first place I went to. For some reason, I really like that one. But downtown, I like. Oh man, you just put me on. What's next to Harrison Brothers?
Oh yeah, Commerce Kitchen.
Commerce Kitchen.
Yep.
We love fried green tomatoes. My wife
Very
loves
good.
Commerce Kitchen.
Yeah.
I love I love a lot of things. I like the cookie fix. I think that's great because that's different, like a crumble.
You take
cookie.
it home too. Yeah.
Yeah, you take it home. I love ice cream. I love Culver's. I love Freddy's. I could just go on and on about food.
You tried it all.
I like the char. You really want to like entertain someone and kind of fine dining. Yeah,
Char's probably one of my favorite fine dining. I think I did my birthday there or something. It's just one of those kind of places. White tablecloth and hey, how do you feel about the Tex-Mex we have here?
I like it. There's a lot of Mexican restaurants, Tex-Mex. Yeah. I do. We're waiting for that one. I think it's Pablo Sandoval's has opened up another one over by where we live. Yeah, we really liked it. It was one of those things where we went to this, whatever it was before, and then the next day it was like shut down.
Yeah.
And I guess they sold it or remodel or something, but we were going to go there for lunch. Like we were just here yesterday for lunch. We were going to do back to back. And
I think one of the challenges that really any area is having, but especially it seems like in Huntsville, is that restaurant industry where, it's great that we're bringing in all these kind of low tech jobs like at Mazda Toyota, for instance, and then these people that were working in a restaurant can now go make $50,000 with benefits at Toyota Mazda. But then who's going to backfill that job at the restaurant? So just being able to bring people into work has been a struggle for some of them, but it seems like we're turning a corner on that. I think quality's gone up. People have been patient with people. Yeah. And that's something you have here in the South that you may not have in other places.
I certainly saw that in December, January when we first got here. They were really struggling with staffing levels. And I also love to just cook in the backyard. So I'll do, I got a smoker, a griddle, and a grill and, any combination of meat so that my kids love it. So we don't go out as much because they know Dad's going to make a good meal.
Yeah, you say you're out the county line area. That literally used to be the county line, and that was it, and it is. But the city has just continued to expand. I think Huntsville is actually the 16th largest city if you just look at square mileage, land mass, which is pretty crazy when you think all these large cities and the populations of these cities. But Huntsville, you got a little room to spread out. Maybe you didn't have in Virginia.
One thing, I tell you what, the highlight of Alabama for me is the DMV. You don't have to.
I didn't think I'd hear that. Yeah.
You don't have to touch a pen.
Yeah.
And I think a couple times I've gone in the little kiosk. You push what you want. You get your little slip of paper, and then you don't even sit down. They call your number. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Yep.
Like, is this a joke? Like, where's the candid camera? And then you go in there, and in 5 minutes you're out. Like, that is unheard of.
Right.
So they have got the DMV down.
Yeah. Well, there you go, everybody. DMV said, Troy, is there anything else you'd want everybody to know, whether about Mantech or our town or?
I think if it's just, no matter what you think about Alabama, just come to Huntsville and check it out.
Great.
Right. You get over some people's ignorance or bias or whatever perceptions. And I know most people will come down and be like, oh my gosh, just like I did. I actually came here 10 years ago and played Hampton Cove.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I had no idea. This is a kind of a microcosm of what it feels like to work in DC. It's all the same companies in our industry.
Yeah.
It's like,
see all the same names.
And a lot of times the same people.
Right.
But, Huntsville is incredible. And we're just trying to pave the way. So there are going to be thousands more to come. And hopefully Mantech is going to be one that people choose as an employer of choice. And, and they'll enjoy their transition just as much as we did.
Where can people find Our Town?
OurTownPodcast.net. And then it's video and audio. So the video side, you get it on YouTube and Spotify. I have it video there. And then everything's Apple, Google, Stitcher, Overcast, you name it. On the audio side, just type in Our Town Podcast.
All right, Troy. Well, thanks for coming on Uncommon Access.
Thanks for having me, James.
You bet.
And thanks to Phil over here
you bet.
Driving the board. I know how hard it is.
Phil's our man on the board over here. He does a good job every week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Uncommon Access. Our podcast is produced by Redstone Gateway, where the future works. You can find Uncommon Access on major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. You can find out more about Uncommon Access on redstonegateway.com/podcast.